Nowadays, the term feminism is becoming increasingly recurrent in our society. We talk about it in the media, how favorite celebrities are taking a stand for or against the movement. It is being used by corporations to sell goods through advertisement, and petitions are created and signed around the world in support of what the movement tends to stand for. Today, feminism and women empowerment are the hot topic. Yet, feminism is not new. Feminist philosophies actually come from the Age of Enlightenment, and the social movement, as we know it, is the result of the initiative of Alain de Gouges, who is considered the pioneer of feminism. In the context of the French Revolution, seeing that no special rights were attributed to women in the Declaration of Man and the Citizen, she invited women through the publication of her book, The Declaration of Women and the Citizen, to invest public space and participate with passion in all political struggles of the time. From the French Revolution to the present day, feminism has evolved. The old feminism claimed the right to vote, the right to work alongside men, and the access for education for all at the higher level. However, today, those concepts seem to be widely crowded, so why is feminism still up to date? Around the world, it still exists countries where women's access to this basic right are still denied. In April 2014, the terrorism group of Boko Haram justified the fact that they kidnapped the 200 Nigerian girls by saying that women should be at home raising children and looking after their husband instead of learning how to cook and instead of learning how to write and read. In Saudi Arabia, for instance, women are still limited to few career choices and job position. However, those examples are the exceptions to the general rule. Nowadays, women have mostly the access to every level of education and every job position. Indeed, the National Center for Education Statistics, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, 68% of women get 68% of associated degrees, 58% of bachelor degrees, 52% of master degrees, and 50% of doctorates. Consequently, feminism nowadays is not mostly characterized by the fight for basic human rights, such as the right to vote or the right to work alongside men or the access to education, but it is still all about equality. Indeed, when the suffragettes manifested, they envisioned a world where men and women would be truly equal. However, when you look at the social pressure related to beauty or morals that women have to face from the beginning of their teenage years, or the minorities that they represent within the highest level of the government or the companies, one can quickly understand that equality is not an achieved goal. In the world of Sheryl Sandberg, an author and technology executive, better known as the chief officer of Facebook, I will say that in a world truly equal, all the countries would be led by women and all of the whole house would be led by men. Moreover, feminism is fighting against this common assumption according to one, women are led by animalistic how to prevent rape instead of teaching people not to see women. According to how patriarchal system, human beings are not capable of doing better than the society where men are ashamed of their interest in cooking, fashion, or dance, and feel helpless when dealing with sadness because they are told that showing emotions shows weakness. In this society where men must be sexually aggressive and where women need to wear makeup to feel pretty, and the same society where being a woman in the work market is an handicap, and where only half of the world is invited to the decision making. Why I believe in feminism? Because feminism thinks that we can and we deserve much more better than that. However, I realized through my observation that even that a lot of persons don't identify themselves with the movement, even when their personal story would encourage someone to believe in the equality of chances. For instance, as a single mother in a country where father's responsibilities are downplayed, and as an entrepreneur in a politically and economically unstable country, my mother shows me every day that women are capable of much more than what society wants us to think. She taught me confidence, persistence, resilience, and disciplines. Although those qualities are not the first one required to women by society. By giving the example, she told me how to take risks, to believe in my dream, to never restrict them, and that hard work always pays off. However, she's never really enthusiastic when I'm talking about feminism. And therefore, through research and conversation, I've come to the conclusion that despite its great principles, feminism is weakened by several flaws that slow down the realization of its goals. And that, briefly, all those issues all concerned the fact that feminism is not an inclusive movement. Consequently, you might be or known person who will promote gender equality, but will never introduce themselves as feminists. I have come to the conclusion that feminism is not an inclusive movement for three main reasons. First, because people confuse feminism and misandrism. According to Sarah Bedley, the author of Ironic Misandrism, misandrism is the hatred of men and war. Radical feminists, often characterized by misandrist remarks or points of view, have been legitimately accused of misandry. However, one should know that other feminists criticize this, describing it as a lazy and insidious culture within the feminist movement. Most feminists actively disagree with the belief that women are better than men and think that it goes against all the fundamental principles of feminism. Some feminists may be misandrist, but it's by no means a criterion to join the club. For instance, um, uh, we all know that a lot of persons drink in college, but it doesn't mean that uh, college is nothing more than a drinking club, right? Um, uh, Another reason why people tend not to identify themselves with feminism is because they tend to believe that feminism is all about women, for women, and by women. This belief leads to the common assumption that feminism is a woman-centric movement. Although women are a main focus of feminism, the movement also acknowledges that men are also victims of the patriarchal system. Therefore, both men and women are invited to critically think about the gender norms that tend to limit them to a certain range of behavior. Nowadays, feminism is not only up to date, it's for everybody. And finally, the last reason I came up with is that personalities are routinely rejecting the term. Taylor Swift is not a feminist because she doesn't believe in such thing as guys versus girls. Madonna sees herself as a humanist instead, and Lady Gaga is not a feminist because she loves men. In a country where many or more negative stereotypes about feminism, it may be a smarter career move for those women. However, it reinforced the idea that feminism is the hatred of men, or is simply unattractive or uncool. Now that we know what feminism really stands for and that we identified its weakness, it's a responsibility to do our best to improve the movement and make it more efficient. Otherwise, we might never reach our goals. I believe that in order to improve the feminism movement, we must seriously consider those reforms. First, the term feminism itself limits the movement, and in a world where first impression matters so much, it is legitimate that people attach feminism with women, which is one of the main focus but not the main goal. The name of the movement should reflect or send back to equality between genders, not women. The next step would also be to raise more awareness, to educate both men and women about the movement, what it really stands for, and how they are both impacted by the patriarchal system on the first hand. People need to understand that feminism is not about women's superiority, but about gender equality. And finally, feminism needs to become more viral. Every time a celebrity like Emma Watson, Beyonce, or Ryan Gosling take a stand for the movement or use their voice or their work to promote its principles, it contributes to make the movement more viral. And even though it can have the opposite outcome, as we saw with Lady Gaga and Madonna, it does bring more attention around feminism when her favorite artist support it. A feminist is one who advocates or supports the right and equality of women. A real feminist is one who thinks you should have the freedom to explore life beyond the rigid boundaries of traditional masculinity and choose for yourself what aligns with your own values. It means that we can even agree with some of the things the traditional system teaches, as long as we think critically about them before agreeing. And choose fully, and that it doesn't hurt anybody else. Being a feminist means that you realize that even though some women may be lucky enough to talk for themselves, there are still many who can't. I believe that a real feminist should be entirely herself and be confident enough to don't obsess about its body or call each other derogatory terms such as slut and whores. Any insult that is genderized shouldn't be used at all. Women should support each other, bring each other up, and empower each other. Moreover, we must start to be smarter consumer. Advertisements aren't the best authority on what empowerment looks like, especially if they are telling us that we can be as great as we want as long as we buy their products. And finally, we have to spread the word to others being pressured by the sexual practice and gender norms of our society. Together, let's build a world where we can all meet our full potential in the field that we will choose to.